Welcome to our Trump Briefing Show. Today, we're diving into a heated controversy where the U.S. has deported 8 migrants convicted of crimes to South Sudan and other countries, despite court orders limiting removals to their homeland unless safety concerns are proven. This situation is raising serious legal and human rights questions, especially given South Sudan's ongoing chaos and violence. Stay tuned as we unpack the details and implications of these deportations. Next, we turn to the global stage. President Trump is preparing to meet South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House. The meeting aims to smooth over tensions caused by Trump's accusations of a. The Associated Press reports that the Trump administration has recently deported 8 migrants convicted of crimes, including cases from Myanmar, Vietnam, and other countries, to South Sudan and other nations. This action has sparked controversy because some of these deportations appear to violate court orders requiring immigrants to be given a meaningful opportunity to argue their safety concerns before removal. A Massachusetts judge, Brian E. Murphy, has summoned U.S. officials to an emergency hearing to clarify the circumstances of these deportations, emphasizing the importance of humane treatment and proper legal procedures. Despite the government's refusal to disclose specific details, reports suggest that some migrants, including a man from Myanmar and a woman from Vietnam, were flown to Africa without adequate language support or warning, raising serious legal and ethical questions. South Sudan, a nation plagued by ongoing violence, political instability, and human rights abuses, has not yet confirmed the arrival of any deported migrants, and officials have stated they would investigate and possibly deport individuals not from South Sudan. The situation underscores the complex and contentious nature of U.S. immigration policies, especially when involving countries with fragile stability and severe human rights issues, such as South Sudan, which has been mired in civil war since independence and remains heavily dependent on international aid. Meanwhile, the Toronto Star highlights the paradox of U.S. policy towards South Sudan, once celebrated as a symbol of hope after independence but now a country in chaos, where migrants from distant countries like Vietnam and Cuba are being sent despite the ongoing turmoil. South Sudan's own struggles with civil war, ethnic divisions, and economic collapse have left it incapable of managing an influx of deportees, especially given its reliance on aid and fragile peace agreements. The country's political landscape remains volatile, with renewed conflicts threatening to plunge it back into full-scale civil war, reminiscent of the devastating violence of 2013 and 2016. The U.S., which once supported South Sudan's independence and provided substantial aid, has sharply reduced its assistance amid diplomatic tensions and domestic policy shifts, raising questions about how well South Sudan is prepared to handle or integrate deported migrants. The situation reveals a stark contrast between the U.S.'s historical support for South Sudan and its current deportation policies, which risk further destabilizing a nation already struggling with violence, corruption, and humanitarian crises, leaving the fate of deported migrants uncertain in a country still grappling with its own profound challenges. The Toronto Star reports a tense White House meeting between President Donald Trump and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, amid Trump's accusations of genocide against white farmers, a claim South Africa vehemently denies. To soften the atmosphere, notable golf champions Ernie Els and Retief Goosen, both Afrikaners and U.S. Open winners, will join the delegation, alongside billionaire Johan Rupert, highlighting the complex intersection of golf diplomacy and racial tensions. Meanwhile, in the U.S., the Justice Department is investigating former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo over his COVID-19 management, following a House oversight referral, with Cuomo's spokesperson dismissing it as political interference. Trump, still irritated with Springsteen, posted a doctored video mocking the musician, continuing his feud with critics. The administration also deported 8 migrants to South Sudan, despite court questions about their final destinations and the country's ongoing violence and human rights issues, prompting a federal judge to demand detailed explanations from immigration officials. Elon Musk, another influential South African-born figure, is expected to attend Trump's meeting with Ramaphosa, as South Sudan remains embroiled in conflict, with warnings of a potential civil war. The White House announced a massive $175 billion Golden Dome missile defense system, aiming to deploy space-based interceptors within Trump's term, illustrating the administration's focus on advanced military technology. Domestically, GOP leaders are rushing to pass a multi-trillion-dollar tax cut package, despite a Congressional Budget Office estimate that it will significantly increase the deficit, with a court-ordered hearing scrutinizing the legality of recent deportations to South Sudan and other countries, amid concerns over unlawful removals. Trump's White House also plans a grand military parade for the Army's 250th birthday, featuring historical reenactments and flyovers, while the president's schedule includes hosting South Africa's leader, discussing issues from racial barriers to trade policies, amidst ongoing diplomatic tensions. The administration's aggressive expansion of the 287(g) program delegates immigration enforcement powers to local police, raising human rights concerns, especially as reports emerge of migrants being deported to Africa in violation of court orders, underscoring the contentious and complex landscape of U.S. immigration policy and international relations. The New York Times reports on the Trump administration's legal battle to keep the inner workings of the secretive Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, under wraps, as they appeal to the Supreme Court to block access to documents and depositions related to the agency's operations. The administration argues that DOGE, which has been implicated in directing federal workforce cuts and layoffs, is merely an advisory body without decision-making power, thus exempt from transparency laws. However, court rulings suggest DOGE has played a substantive role in shaping policy and executing cuts across federal agencies, prompting investigations by watchdog groups like CREW. The ongoing legal dispute underscores the opaque nature of DOGE's activities, with the judiciary and Congress scrutinizing its leadership and influence, while the administration seeks to shield it from public disclosure, potentially delaying transparency for years. Meanwhile, The Independent covers Kristi Noem's aggressive measures to root out leaks within the Department of Homeland Security, employing polygraph tests on staff suspected of leaking sensitive information. This unprecedented approach, involving lengthy and invasive examinations, has created a climate of fear among employees, many of whom are being questioned about non-classified leaks and political dissent. Noem's administration defends the tactic as a necessary step to uphold national security, but critics argue it's a reckless overreach that undermines morale and due process. The use of polygraphs in this context is highly unusual, and reports indicate that the practice has been expanded beyond typical security clearances to target internal discontent, raising concerns about civil liberties and the chilling effect on government transparency. In a satirical turn, CBS's Stephen Colbert mocks the media and corporate interests over Paramount's potential bribery scandal involving a settlement with Donald Trump. As Paramount considers paying up to $50 million to settle a meritless lawsuit over a 60 Minutes interview, Colbert humorously spits out water, highlighting the absurdity of the situation. Democratic lawmakers have warned that such a payoff could constitute illegal bribery, especially given the company's need for FCC approval of its merger with Skydance Media. Colbert's parody underscores the shady optics of paying a sitting president large sums to influence regulatory decisions, while he jokingly offers to testify for a slightly higher fee, exposing the potential corruption at play in corporate politics entanglements. The Independent vividly describes President Donald Trump's ambitious yet controversial plan for a missile defense system called the Golden Dome, which he claims will realize Ronald Reagan's long-standing vision of national missile protection. However, the article paints a picture of excess and folly, highlighting Trump's obsession with gold and grandeur, which mirrors his personal style, as seen in the lavish gilding of his office and even his remote control. The plan is criticized for being overly ambitious, costly, and flawed, reminiscent of past failed projects like the border wall. The piece raises concerns about the system's practicality, questioning whether it could effectively defend against modern threats like intercontinental ballistic missiles, and warns about unintended global consequences, such as escalating arms races and destabilizing regional security, especially if other nations develop their own missile defenses. The article concludes with a cautious hope that Trump's unpredictable approach might somehow lead to peace, but it underscores the dangerous unpredictability and high costs that could make the world even more perilous. The Independent also explores the impending decline of U.S. foreign aid amid sweeping budget cuts, marking a significant shift in international development efforts. The article details how recent reductions, projected to reach $40 billion by 2025, threaten to dismantle the long-standing norms of global solidarity and multilateral cooperation established since World War II. It contextualizes this trend as a culmination of decades of criticism from both free market advocates and leftist critics, who have long challenged the efficacy and motives of aid programs. Despite past efforts to reform and improve aid delivery, progress has been slow, and the current political climate under Trump and other Western governments signals a retreat from large-scale financial commitments. The piece advocates for a strategic rethink, emphasizing the need to align aid with national interests, global challenges like climate change, and structural inequalities, suggesting a shift toward multilateral funding mechanisms and policy reforms that could better address 21st-century realities. It calls for a high-level independent commission to forge a new paradigm of international cooperation, moving beyond traditional aid models to a more effective and equitable system. Nikkei Asia reports on the tangible economic impact of Trump's tariffs on Japanese vehicle exports to the United States, revealing that despite the 25% tariff introduced in April, Japanese automakers are absorbing some costs to keep prices competitive. The data shows a 15% decrease in the unit price of Japanese vehicles exported to the US, even as exports increased by nearly 12%, indicating that manufacturers like Toyota are lowering prices to mitigate the tariff's effects. The article details how automakers are balancing cost-cutting measures and production adjustments in response to the tariffs, which threaten to inflate vehicle prices if the high tariffs persist. It also highlights the broader economic implications, with U.S. imports from Japan declining and port activity in Los Angeles dropping sharply, signaling potential disruptions to global supply chains. The piece underscores the vulnerability of Japan's export-dependent economy to trade tensions and tariffs, illustrating the ongoing ripple effects in international trade and the automotive industry's adaptation to a new, uncertain landscape. The Independent reports that Target is experiencing a significant decline in sales, with a 2.8% drop to $23.85 billion in the first quarter, falling short of expectations, and a downward revision of its 2025 sales forecast, now predicting a slight decrease instead of growth. Target CEO, Brian Cornell, emphasized that raising prices to offset tariffs is a last resort, as the company seeks to mitigate tariff impacts without passing costs on to consumers already hesitant to spend due to fears of inflation and economic uncertainty. The company also faced backlash after halting some diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and reducing LGBTQ+ merchandise for Pride Month, which further impacted consumer sentiment. Meanwhile, the broader economic environment is strained by President Trump's tariff plans, which have caused volatile stock market swings and increased costs for retailers like Walmart, which has already raised prices on some items. Target's sales decline is compounded by a 3.8% drop in comparable store sales, a decrease in transaction volume, and a reduction in market share across most merchandise categories, highlighting its ongoing struggle to compete with giants like Walmart and Amazon. In response, Target is launching new strategies, including a focus on affordable items and rapid decision-making, to attract cautious consumers, while also reducing reliance on Chinese sourcing and shifting towards domestic and Central American suppliers. The company's profits for the period reached $1.04 billion, but overall, its shares have plummeted over 37% in the past year amid these challenges, reflecting the turbulent retail landscape shaped by tariffs, economic fears, and social controversies. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
Morning sunlight on the street, city whispers soft and sweet, faces mix in daily grind, every story intertwined, cultures blend like colors bright, languages in the silent night, on the table stories told, food and feast upon so bold, people living day by day, in the heart they find their way, sharing moments, voices sing, in this world of everything. Society in rhythms beat, entertainment's fleeting heat, echoes of wars and fears, laughing through our unseen tears, children playing in the park, drawing dreams till after dark, Elders speak of days gone by, washing shadows from the sky. People living day by day, in the heart they find their way, sharing moments, voices sing, in this world of everything. Society